I'd like to talk about the power to see it through. I wrote a little book about it a lot of years ago. Linda's favorite book, she says. And there will come a point when I may ask you for comment during the time I'm speaking, but it'll not be for those of us who normally speak. It'll be for those who don't normally speak. And if you want to respond to what I ask, if you'll just put your hand up, I'll ask you. You'll have a brief word to say, a question to ask, or an insight to offer. Okay? Don't worry about it. I'll see if I can work it out when we get there. Okay? It's the power to see it through. You'll remember some years back when Teresa of Calcutta, better known as Mother Teresa, was given the Nobel Prize for her work. Everybody was there, kings and queens, lords and ladies, celebrities from everywhere. Everybody who was anything was there. And just this little woman was the center of the world at the time. As a matter of fact, the Pope gave her one of these big, beautiful Pope-mobiles. She sold it in a week and gave the money away. But in any case, when she was interviewed after all of this hullabaloo about her, and someone asked her, all of this, all of these people, all these marvelous people saying all these wondrous things about you, does that not ever get to your head a bit? And she said, I'm telling you something you've already heard, but I don't care. I'm telling it again, all right? And she said, well, do you remember the time that Jesus rode in, fulfilling Zechariah's 9:9? Your king comes in riding on a donkey, offering peace. Yeah, and a number of them said, yeah, we're acquainted with that. She said, you know how they were throwing down clothes and branches and leaves and all of that down in front of the donkey? Oh, yeah. She said, do you suppose that donkey thought it was all for him? Well, the message is clear. The woman knew who all the glorification was for. When I speak to you, not one of you has any doubt that if you make it through, it's all about him. Not all about him alone, but all about him with you. He's the senior partner. He's the energizer, the keeper, and all that kind of thing. So it's never without you. But no one here imagines that they're self-made in Christ. No one believes that. And when Peter speaks in 1 Peter chapter 1, saying that they have been people who are destined for an inheritance incorruptible, undefiled, that fades not away, reserved in heaven for you. The next phrase is attached to verse 4. Who are guarded or kept by faith. God is your, and you know this, God is your keeper. And he is your keeper through faith. That is the faith that he brought to you. Philippians chapter 1, verse 29, it has been given unto you not only to believe on him, but to suffer for his sake. And the verb is one of those compound verbs that means it's a gift given to you as a gift. So your faith, while it's not forced on you, is a gift, not something that you earned. All of that you know. So who is it then that is destined for an inheritance incorruptible, undefiled, and it fades not away, reserved in heaven? Who is it? It's those who are kept by the power of God through faith. Your faith, but your faith that is based upon the faithfulness of Jesus Christ. That's probably, well, at least it's certainly now getting to be a scholarly consensus, that in chapter 2, verses 19 and following of Galatians, it says that it's the life that I now live, I live by faith of Jesus Christ. The King James Version follows that and lets it be a straight subjective genitive. It's Christ's faith. But whether it's true in that text or not is neither here nor there. And in the end, I don't know why they're making a big deal out of it. If it's not in that text, it's throughout the Bible. You and I have our faith because Christ was faithful and all of that, you see. And it's on the basis of his faith that we have come to faith. And we thank God that we are not self-saviors. Yes? But once more, it is not God who does this with some kind of non-coercive hex. It's not God who does it in some way that overcomes who we are. He does not overcome us. No matter how he goes about it, we are yet called, as Paul will say in Romans chapter 12, don't be conformed to this world, but have yourself transformed. And there's a middle voice there that says it's not a passive, it's not done like you don't just hang and God does it to you. You have him do it to you. You want it done. You do whatever you have to do to make it available. You refuse to step out beyond God's reach. You reach for him as he works for you. That's Romans 12. Don't be conformed to this world, but be you transformed by the renewing of your mind. So we're involved in all of it. But nevertheless, the initiative always was, is now, and always will be the work of God. Yes? Now then, all of that you've known well already, I'd like you now to let me read, or you read with me, in Matthew chapter 13, where Jesus tells a parable. Hey, what I'm wanting to do in the course of what I do, if I can manage this to stay on the point, I want to say it's almost remarkable that any of us are saved. I said to a fellow one time, it's almost like a miracle. He said, that's not right. It's not a miracle. And he got all upset. I don't say it's a miracle, but I do say in our world, it's extraordinary that anyone at all is saved in a world like this. Matthew chapter 13. Matthew 13. Jesus speaks of a parable. I'm beginning at verse 24. There are a number of verses along with this parable that I'm not interested in discussing tonight, okay? It's difficult. Well, not difficult. You have to know where you're going, and it takes me too long even to talk about A, B, and C without getting into the other. He tells parables that they won't come to believe. How do you make that out? It's not that hard. It just takes a long time. So I'm skipping those verses. not because they're difficult. They're not. He's quoting a psalmist, and he's quoting the book of Isaiah. And if you get the background to it, it's not that hard. Just takes time. I'm back in 13. He's telling a parable, and I'm jumping in at 24. No, that's not what I'm looking for. Make it 18. 13:18. Hear the parable of the sower. Preachers like to say, well, it would be better calling it the parable of the soils. Makes it easier to preach that way. But it's never wise to argue with Jesus. He said, I want to tell you a parable of the sower. That's okay with us. So we're sticking with that for the time being, all right? Talks about soils, but he wants to call the thing what he just called it. Therefore, hear the parable of the sower. When anyone hears the word of the kingdom and does not understand it, then the wicked one comes and snatches away that which was sown in his heart. This is he who received seed by the wayside. This is the interpretation of the parable which he told earlier. Okay? The parable, he told a parable earlier. Now he's interpreting it. Now 13, verse 19. When anyone hears the word of the kingdom and does not understand, then the wicked one comes and snatches away what was sown in his heart. This is he who is the seed by the wayside. The picture, the old farmer got a big bag around his neck. He cast broadly. Every seed is a miracle. Every seed is it's not strictly a miracle, but every seed is a miracle. It's a mystery. You throw it into the ground and it does all these things. A farmer that stuck his hand into a bag of seed, he's up to his wrist in miracle. Yeah, good seed. The potential miracle is there. He now says in verse 20, but he who received the seed in stony places, this is he who hears the word and immediately receives it with joy. Yet he has no root in himself and endures only for a while. For what? I wish I could see better. But for when tribulation or persecution, thank you, my dear. That helped me. For when tribulation or persecution arises because of the word, immediately he stumbles. Now he who received seed among the thorns is he who hears the word, and the cares of this world and the deceitfulness of riches choke the word, and he becomes unfruitful. 23. But he who received seed on the good ground is he who hears the word and understands it, who indeed bears fruit and produces some 100-fold, some 60, and some 30. Yeah, that's the parable of the sower. Mark tells the same parable. The disciples, you'll read it, it's in the book of Mark, chapter 4, I think. They come to him afterward, not here, we're sticking with this one, Matthew, all right, the record. And Mark, they come to Jesus and they say, what's the meaning of this parable? And he says this, if you don't understand that parable, how are you going to understand all the others? And that is a very provocative remark. So what do we get from this text here? Plainly, I mean, what comes right out of this text? I'm going to imagine something that's not written in the text, but here's the story. The disciples come, somebody comes and says to him, Master, if you are the chosen one, the one who was to come, how come everybody doesn't receive you? And how come those who do receive you, a lot of them, walk away from you again? John 6, multitude walked away, never again to follow him, John said. What is happening here? Whatever else we get out of this, there are powers, there are evils, there are things in life that are, because we are who we are, because this culture is what it is extremely powerful and could keep us from becoming Christians. Not you. Not you. It was possible for you not to become a Christian, but you didn't stay out. You're in. A lot of people come to the Christ and find him disappointing. The book of Hebrews speaks about such people. All the promises were greater than the fulfillment. We've been waiting on it. We thought when he came, all of that, everything would be worked out, right? And we would have freedom and political this and that and the other. It never happened, and so they gave up on him. Many of them believing, or certainly a number of them not believing, that Jesus Christ was indeed the King who was to come and who would bring liberty. I'm saying that what happens there, and Jesus describes these people, I'm saying that happens today. You know this is true. Jesus was no sociologist. He didn't spend his hours, didn't spend his life. Bless me, he's 30 when he starts to preach. A couple of years later, he's been killed and rises from the dead, no longer to be a part of life in the flesh phase, no longer mortal. Yeah. But he didn't spend any time on reading up on sociology and sociopsychology and all that kind of stuff. But he read at least 2 books. He read the book of life. I mean, looking around, seeing people, getting to know them. God didn't fill his head with all the answers. But the scripture does say of him that he would not trust himself to a particular group, for he knew what was in man. How do you get to know that? Well, we have a couple of choices. God would whisper, so to speak, would whisper in his ear, that one there, you can't trust him because he will do this, that, and the other. Yeah? None of that went on. This was a human. This Jesus we're talking about was made of a woman. Galatians 4:4. He was made like sinful flesh, in the image and likeness of sinful flesh. Romans 8, verse 3. He was like us. Hebrews 2:10, all the way down to 15. And then 14, for as much then as the children were made partakers of flesh and blood, he also himself likewise partook of the same, that through dying he might destroy him that had the power of death. All of those texts make it clear. John chapter 8, I'm a man and you're wanting to kill me. It is profoundly important. This you know, of course, but as soon as you say this about Jesus being a human, all kinds of difficulties, enrichments, it's true, enrichment of our faith. He's made in all points like unto us. He's tempted in every way like unto us, but without sin. Jesus, a high priest, suited, human, separate from sinners, says the text. He himself will say, challenging, who among you can find sin in me? And then in John 16, he said, I need to go. The prince of this world is coming, but he has nothing on me. All of this, a human, one of us. Yeah. But as soon as you say that, all kinds of questions arise. Questions we'll take care of later in our lives if we're able to do it. We accept this humanity. And Jesus looked at people, and being a human himself, involved in all of this, of living, being hurt himself, hearing himself chastised and blasphemed and all that kind of thing. He knew what it was like to be hurt. He knows what it is like to weep through great sorrow and disappointment. He knows how to be offended when his father is blasphemed and that kind of thing. He knows all of that. He knows people, and he looks at people, doesn't treat them all the same. He does not. He can look at one group and say of them, hypocrites, and all of that. But I don't know a text. If you know one, you'll tell me about it. I don't know of a single text where Jesus ever rebuked a woman in the New Testament. Yeah. Don't know of one. Nor do I know a text where he, on record, has rebuked and spoken severely to the moral outer fringe people. I don't know a text where he did that. I don't doubt that somewhere along the line, a non-Christian Jew, a bit of whatever I'm supposed to say, he maybe said to him, hey, you know, and rebuked him. I don't doubt it, but it's not on record. What's on record is him constantly speaking to teachers, scholars, who took away the key of knowledge, he said. Not wanting to enter the kingdom, you hindered those who would have, frightening them. A lot of their own crew, rulers and that, believed in Jesus, the book of Acts says, but John says they believed, but they were afraid of the Jews and wouldn't confess. So when Jesus lists some people here and says, watch the fella, and he's given the parable, and then he draws a message from what he sees, the ground, the thorns of this, that, and the other, and he believes, and therefore it's true. He believes that there were people who were raised and heard the message in thorny ground. But see, you already believe that. You know that's true. You look around you. You know people and you wonder, how could they possibly win? How could God possibly get a hold of them? How could they, I'm not talking about the people who have not heard. Those, I don't debate about those. Those who simply have not heard. God's going to take care of them. Don't worry about it. Think noble thoughts of God. But people who have heard, but they're beaten. They live with the gangs. They run the show. They live in absolute this, that, and the other. They live raised in homes where fathers and mothers were doing, but all of that. The idea that he treats them all the same, I think, is unmitigated rubbish. He doesn't do it. He doesn't do that. And he will say, you know why he didn't come? And it's the illustration and then the application. Do you know why he didn't come? Because the seed was sown on the byway and it was walked under by the feet of men into the ground, and it didn't get to him. Yeah. There were others who were born in the midst of thorns, and there were temptations that they faced that were not being faced by others. Jesus has that remarkable text, which I'm not interested in right now, but it needs to be said. He said, woe unto you, Chorazin, Bethsaida, and Capernaum. These were towns with lots of, what did they come to meet in?
Synagogue?
Synagogue, thank you, Linda. These were towns with plenty of synagogues. And he said, if the miracles worked in Sodom, if the miracles worked in you had been worked in Sodom, they would have repented. His point then is what? There are some people who get extra privilege. Others may not get as much of them and end up lost, and you think, oh, wait a minute, that doesn't sound fair. But don't worry about the feeling that you get, well, that's not fair. You know what triggers that kind of thing in you? Him. He triggers that. And the life of people that have these hard times, wrestling with things that's got on top of them, sins that they can't control, hunger that makes them bitter while other people are eating, homelessness, all of these people, sinners and all like the rest of us. But are they going to be treated the same? And so we begin to think, oh, that's not fair. It's all right to think that. The thing then that is fundamentally important for you and for me, and you do it, you say, yeah, it looks unfair, but God is God. And we see him in Jesus Christ. And if he's even anything like that, he knows what fairness is. He is not unrighteous. If you walk in the light as he is in the light, we have fellowship one with another, and Christ's blood. Why is all that about? Because God is faithful, righteous, to forgive people. We're told that God is righteous. The Hebrew writer will say, what? Chapter 6. To the Hebrews who have fallen away or those who are ready to leave. He said, now you haven't been required to stand up and lose your blood. Not yet. But things have been taken from you. You've been robbed, peace, social peace, freedom, and all kinds of things. Yeah, you've lost those. And he says, God is not unfair, unrighteous. Yeah, but God is righteous. He's fair. He takes into account all sinners and all their situations. Christ does. He doesn't say, if someone came and someone did, this is what provoked the deal. Why doesn't everybody believe on you? Why, when they believe on you, do they not stay with you? He doesn't say, anybody who doesn't come to me does not care. They just are reprobate and none of that. He could have made one story and said, they don't want me because they don't have the heart. They're all like that. Could have said that. There's a text or two that when you read them, you think, oh, no, wait a minute, that's exactly what it sounds like. But then there are a couple of texts that makes it sound like God didn't want people to believe. Those are all interesting texts that need to be worked on, but not for now. And as soon as you read a text and say, that looks wrong, if it's God's text, if it's Jesus' word, you know it's not wrong. You know it's not wrong. But why do you feel then? Because he has taught you to. Because he has taught you to. He's not angry with you because you say, Father, that doesn't, Don't be afraid of him. Don't be afraid of him. He doesn't want you to be afraid of him. What he will say is, trust me. And his son in 14:1 said to a lot of troubled fellows, let not your heart be troubled. Depending on the verb, never mind. Jim, shut up on that. Let not your heart be troubled. You believe in God. Believe also in me. If those were the only two verses we had, develop that, build that, and he looks at you as he has looked at you, out of the text. And he says to you, here in the 21st century, what he said to those fellas in the first, hey, yo-ho, and you turn, and he says to you, you troubled? And we say, yeah, I'm really troubled. And he would say, what are you troubled about? Tell me. And you tell him your poor sad heart and your terrible story, and I mean terrible things that are tough and things that somebody glances at and says, well, that's a bit of a challenge. You mean a crucifixion, don't you? No, I mean a bit of a challenge. No, it's a crucifixion. And he says to you, so what is happening? And you're saying, I'm really troubled. And he said, well, let not your heart be troubled. You believe in God. So you do. And he's telling you that's what you do. You believe in God. Believe also in me. In my Father's house, there are places for everybody, which is the background of the argument. They're wanting to know who's number one and all that, and nobody's going to get anything because the kingdom's going to go down. Jesus is going to die and all that kind of stuff. You don't worry about any of that stuff. And there's plenty of room for you all. I'm going, and I'm making a place. I'm getting the kingdom, dominion, and all of that, and you've all got a place. He said, if it were not so. Listen, if it were not so, what? My fate, I would have told you. Eh? So, when a text looks like, there are those who are simply not getting a break, Father, he will say, I understand why you say that. Do you trust me? And you say, oh, I do. Then he will say, don't worry about it. Leave it to me. Leave it to me. It's all right for me to know some things that you don't. Okay? But I don't only know everything. I'm not just omniscient. I'm omnibenevolent. If you know what fairness is, I do. So what is it then? How did you get where you are? Some of you have been through. Some of you right now are going through. Some of you will go through all kinds of hurt. Yeah? But he says, if you can trust me, it's going to be okay. But how did you end up saved? Could you not? Well, how come you got the word? Well, I got it from my family. How did it come you were born in a family? Look, think of all the things that there are no answers for, and you end up thinking, all the same, I got a break, didn't I? Am I a lucky duck? Yeah? Am I really blessed? Ooh. And what makes it even more easier for us to exalt? What time is it? Am I nearly done? What helps us in some moments, not all the time? We can't live in exaltation. You get a splitting headache, you get COVID, you get a bereavement, you get betrayal, you get this, that, and the other. We get that. We can't always feel happy. It's okay. Someone could have walked up to Jesus in Gethsemane, saw him sobbing and fervently praying and saying, "Oh, you're the Jesus one, are you? I thought you trusted in God, for pity's sake. Look at you." He never trusted God more than in those moments. But he wasn't happy. He was filled, he says, with a depth of sorrow that he thinks it's about to kill me. And I need help with it in order to get the task fulfilled. And God sent him an angel and strengthened him in it. And having the strength, he headed for the task. No, you don't have to be happy all the time. It doesn't have to be going your way all the time. It's all right to say to God, this is not going right. Yeah, you're in good company when that happens. But nobody should give the impression that Job, the book of Job, I heard 4 or 5 preachers saying this, different times in one of those big gathering jobbers, that Job makes it clear, if you don't scream against God, you're not living authentically. Your faith is not authentic if you don't take God to task like Job did. What? Unmitigated nonsense. That we should read Job and be taught, here's what the purpose of Job is. It's all right to slander God. Job slandered God. He wasn't just saying, I'm hurting here and I don't understand. He was saying more than that. And he said more than that. You are letting sinners get off, and the innocent you're punishing, and on and on and on. He says that kind of thing. Job isn't written to give you or me the liberty to talk to God like that. No. But the message is there. Did I tell you I wrote a little book on Job? It's called Life in the Ash Heap. All right, well, that's the commercial over. So what? You don't have to be happy all the time. It's all right. You don't have to be happy. But what is required is you hang on in faith, the faith that he brought to you. That you, however the temptations come your way or come my way, that I stay in touch with him by faith. For it's faith, 1 John 5, that overcomes not just a specific sin, not just my drunkenness, not just my envy, not just my heartlessness. No, the world in which all those things find their home. Yeah. So, faith, that is all that's required. No, not all that's required. That's what's required. Those who have the power to see it through And I don't mean trudging their entire life through. No. You've had your hard times, or you will be having your hard times, or you have them now hard times. But it hasn't always been like that. And you're thankful for that. You've had your good times as well as your tough times. And you gutted it out through the gut times. And you gutted it out in Christ by the faith that He sustains in you. And that sustaining your faith is Him saving you. That's how He does it. He keeps you in, but you can resist Him. Stephen said to the people who were getting on against him, he said, as your fathers did, you do always resist the Holy Spirit. All the parable, it says the devil can come and steal it out of people's heart. He's not talking about miraculous power of the devil. He's saying anyone who hears the gospel and doesn't come to it, it's not because he has good reason not to come. Let me tell you, it's satanic. The guy or the girl, the man or the woman who hears the gospel and doesn't come to me, as he tells the parable and interprets it, Satan steals that out of them. He does not mean that Satan can come and coerce it out of you. Nothing like that. But he does mean to say, I don't care what the reason is. It's not because they've heard something evil that is true about me. It's not because of the blasphemy. It's not because of this, that, and the other. It's no good reason when they say no to me. It's satanic. And if a lot of them, they get caught up in thorns choke out the word by choking out faith in the person. And what kinds of things? None of you are very, very wealthy. So, although you could be very poor and really want to be very wealthy and worship wealth, that you know.